My name is Dustin Tudor, and my family and I have been coming to Kingsway for almost 2 years. Over the past few Sundays, Trevor has preached sermons that brought a story from my life back to my mind. This story really starts for me whenever my parents divorced at I was about 13 or 14 years old. At the time, my mom babysat Nanette Ketron's kids. So when my parents divorced, Nanette asked us if we would like to attend church where they did, which was here in Mount Vernon. And so I was from Onette, but we started going to church over here. Man, I loved it. The youth group there was incredible. The church was incredible. I got to see as a 14 or 15-year-old really a church on fire, and I loved every part of it. From the time I was 16 and driving, that really became my second home, doing all of these things with the church, with the youth group, really learning who I was in the Lord, and learning to follow Him and do the things that He asked me. Those things became really the desires of my heart. I attended church there by myself from 16 on, and so and I loved it. My mom remarried, so they started going to a different church while I still went here, and my stepdad was amazing. He took care of us. I remember meeting back at home after church, talking with him about the sermon that they were a part of and the church service that I was a part of, talking about those things, talking about God, really talking about life in general. I had conversations, with him about life that I really hadn't had with anybody else. And so he was really important to me. I go off to college, went to Missouri Southern in Joplin. Like most college kids, they kind of leave their home church. And so for me, that became joining a group called Koinonia there at Missouri Southern. And in the time I was there, that replaced my church body, replaced my youth group. I loved it. I made great friends there. We did great things there together. And so that became my church. I remember waking up one morning, my roommate woke me up and said I had a phone call from my mom. So I walk into our little apartment kitchen and get on the phone, and my mom says that my stepdad had shot himself. And I immediately, my initial thought is that he, accidentally shot himself in the foot or something. And so I said, "Where is he? I'll head there now." And she said, "No, I'm sorry. He's not here anymore." And I can't really describe the feeling that I felt then. I knew immediately, obviously, that I had to get home. I also knew that being the oldest brother, that there would be some things that I would have to maybe endure or be a strength or be a voice. Immediately left and drove home. I remember today the path that I took to get from Missouri Southern to my house. And I also remember on my way home literally crying out to the Lord and asking for help, because I knew I needed it, and I knew that my family needed it. And my prayers were literally, "Lord, I need something from you." One particular part in the road, driving home, feeling those same thoughts, asking God for help, and crying, driving, all of those things, and a deer shot out in front of me, literally right in front of my car. And it's funny now, funny's probably not the word, but it's funny now to think back on that, because I instantly, didn't slam on my brakes, didn't think, "Oh my gosh." I immediately thought of a song that I remember singing when I was younger and in church. It's also scripture, but the song went through my head, and it is, "As the deer pants for the water, so my soul longeth after you. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship you." That's part of the song that immediately triggered in my head. And looking back on it now, I realize that God was calling to my spirit because He knew the struggles that I would endure a little bit later on, looking back on that, me asking God for help, and him, that deer running across in front of me, and the song in my head literally was him saying, slow down, and remember who I am to you, is really what I think that was. I drove home the rest of the way, got home, still pretty strong. I mean, probably for several months I was pretty strong. I spoke at his funeral, and went back to college, would go back and forth from home to college quite a bit, and was fine. And then, like all struggle and probably like all sin, the devil just kept eating at me. It started out pretty small, in a weird and terrible way. I remember driving on the road, whether it be to church or home or just to college, from my apartment, and driving down the road listening to Christian music or worship music, and all of a sudden a thought would go through my mind like, look, there's a telephone pole, or wonder what that would be like. And I understood at the time that those thoughts were disturbing and wrong. And I remember not coming against those thoughts. I didn't try to bind those thoughts or any of those things. And I didn't ask the Lord to. None of that. I just had them. And then they became more, and then they became more. Those thoughts turned into me allowing the devil to control some different parts of my life. For me, the hardest part in this struggle was having, I started having nightmares. It started off randomly, maybe once a week or less. It was the same nightmare every time. It was horrible. In my nightmare, through various events, I was there when he did it, even though I wasn't in person. And when he did that in my nightmare, I couldn't help him. And the feeling that I had standing there watching him was horrible. To think about it today is horrible, but I realize today that Satan is evil, and it makes me angry today that he would go after a kid like me back then with the stuff that he did, because I can't even, I won't even describe to you the depth that those nightmares went for me. And so I just lived with them. I literally would wake up from them and not want to do much. I'd go to bed. So I said that they started out being kind of irregular in timing, and they ended up being probably 4 or 5 nights a week. And that was my life. Wake up, go to school sometimes, and then go to bed and have a nightmare, and wake up and do the same thing again, and it was horrible. And I was still somewhat involved with Koinonia, still definitely friends with all of those people, and they would ask me how I was, and my answer was fine, even though I was far from it. And so where the story changes for me is I, for whatever reason, decided to go back to my home church one Sunday. I sat through the service, sang the songs, was there the whole time. There was somewhat of an altar call that I knew I needed to go up to and didn't. And after church was over, people were leaving, and I went up to talk to the pastor. Many of you will know him, Mark Killingsworth. He meant something special to me. If there is anyone that I absolutely couldn't lie to in my life, it was him. I went up to him after church that day just to say hi, because I hadn't been there in a while. And he asked me how I was doing. And I said, I'm fine. I'm doing fine. Instead of him saying, oh, great, it's great to see you, see you later, he didn't. And so immediately when I said I'm fine, he says, do you promise? I remember the moment that he asked me that something lifted. I knew that I was struggling, and I knew that I was dark, and I knew that him asking me, do I promise, was, I could feel the intensity of what that moment meant. And so, there's no way I could lie to him. So I told him everything. The thoughts that I was having driving down the road, I told him exactly what was in the nightmares and the struggle that they were, and where I was, that I was dying inside, going to bed every night, waking up feeling as helpless as you could feel, and doing it again every single day. When I was done, he sat me down on the steps there at the altar, and then he said, I'll be right back. So I sat there with my elbows on my knees, looking down. Didn't feel like looking at anybody, to be honest. And a couple minutes later, he comes back up with Ray and Lori Rogers. Jim and Sue Barb were with them also, and then a couple other people, and I don't remember who they were. So he had them come up to me, and Mark told them everything that I had told him, where I was struggling, the nightmares, the thoughts, all of it. They got around me, and I remember him standing behind them, and they stood around me with their hands on me. And to show you probably the darkness that I was in, in that moment, I wasn't there for the prayer. I was there sitting on a step. They were all praying. One of the ladies that was there started speaking in tongues, and I didn't want to hear what she was doing. I didn't want to hear what she was saying. Literally, the thought in my brain was, why in the heck are you doing that right now? That's literally my thought, and I realize how dark that thought is now. But I didn't want to be a part of it. I knew I needed to be there. I knew who God was, but man, I wasn't there. And so she gets done, and I remember Jim Barb praying next out loud. I don't remember anything that he prayed or said. My faith was weak, and although I wanted out of where I was, I didn't see a way out, even in this moment. And so he prayed. As he prayed, I could feel the weight coming off. I felt lighter, nothing dramatic, no angels singing, just me sitting there on a step. The incredible part to this story isn't that. The incredible part to this story is they prayed, we hugged, I got up and left, and I never had another nightmare. The night before that was the last night that I had a nightmare. Never again. Never a thought driving down the road that telephone pole or that ditch or that car looked appealing. They were gone. I never had another one. It's amazing to me that I had zero faith sitting there as they were praying for me. I literally didn't agree with anything that they were praying. Where two or more are gathered, there the Lord is also. I wasn't there. I was sitting on a seat, and that's all. It is incredible to me that the Lord loved me that much, that even in the darkest time of my life, He used the faith of someone else to get rid of the darkness in my life so that I could see the light again. One of the reasons for me why this story is important, honestly, it's a story that I hadn't thought about in a long time. And to be completely honest, not very many people know this story. And so a few weeks ago, when it first brought up to my mind, and then the week after that, Trevor said something else, and I realized this is a story of my life that had to be told. I used to not like telling this story because when I told it, I felt all of those same emotions all over again. When I would talk about the nightmares, I felt those same things as I told it. I felt darkness. I felt the evil that I felt back then. I felt telling the story. It's different now because now I see the victory at the end. What Satan meant to steal, kill, and destroy, what Satan meant for death in me, the Lord turned to light. And to me, that's incredible. To me, this story is an encouragement that in dark times, the Lord is still faithful. He's strength in our weakness. As a body, we're bound together, and He's always calling us to greater things. 1 Corinthians 12:26 puts it this way. It says, if one part suffers, every part suffers with it. If one part is honored, every part rejoices with it. Now you are all the body of Christ, and each one of you is a part of it. I know that our church body does lots of amazing things. I know that God does lots of amazing things through this body. My hope is that this story pushes us even further into where the Lord wants us to be, which is a body that serves each other and cares for each other, a body that hears from the Lord and follows where He leads.